and welcome to a very comprehensive analysis session of Symbiosis Entrance Test 2021. So finally, this exam got over today, was conducted over a period of last 4 days, and it came to an end today with the second slot at 2:30 p.m. And overall, if we talk about the exam was conducted very smoothly, unlike previous years where we had some technical issues. This year, over the last 4 days, we hardly come across very limited instances where students had some difficulty. Otherwise, even the dry run were quite easy actually this time, and overall the entire process went very smoothly. So similar to 2020, this year also, owing to the pandemic, the exam was conducted as a home proctored online test, but much smoother this time if you talk about. Yes, the paper was slightly of the moderate difficulty if I were to summarize the entire SET paper. Over the last 4 days, that has been one of the common aspects. None of the slots had very easy or very difficult paper. It was more or less at the same level in each of the slots. And very similar to 2020, this year also, the VAT section was integrated along with the paper, which means one was supposed to first complete the MCQ part in the allotted 60 minutes, and then you had to appear for the VAT section. Now, this section will be evaluated only for the students who would be clearing the cutoffs as decided by the respective institutes and where you have applied. If you clear the cutoff and once you appear for the personal interview on the respective date on which you have booked your slot for, then only your VAT section will be checked, evaluated, and the scores will be taken into consideration for the preparation of the final merit list. The results, or rather I would say the scorecard, would be released on 27th of July after 3 p.m. So that is the time when you can expect the results to be announced. That is the time. And this is just the scorecard. Each of the institutions will have their own shortlisting dates, which they will announce in due course. If you look at the dates for each of the institution, and this is very important because some of you may not have applied for the institutions yet, and that is something which you need to take care of. SCMS Pune, you have opportunity till 24th of July. So while you appeared for SET in the last 4 days, but if you didn't apply to the respective institutions, your name will not be considered for the final merit list, even if you clear the cutoff, because the institutions need data to about the person who has taken the examination, and that is very, very important. The SCMS Pune last date to apply, in case you have not done so, is 24th of July. For SCMS Noida, it is only 19th of July, and SCMS Nagpur, you can apply till 28th of July. Each of the institutions will be declaring the list of the candidates who would be shortlisted as per the dates given on their website, which is 30th July for Pune, 29th July for Noida and Nagpur. After that, you are required to book your slots, which will be on first come, first serve basis, and then you go for your personal interviews. Now, these interviews will be conducted online, which means similar to your proctor test, you'll be appearing for the interview right from the convenience of your home. But each of the institutes will have their own dates when they will be conducting the personal interviews for each of the candidates, depending on the slot which you may have booked for yourself. So that's on a first come, first serve basis. Now let's go on for the in-depth analysis of the paper and try to understand what exactly happened in the last 4 days. So we all know the paper was altered, the structure was changed, and the number of questions were reduced to 60, with English, Quant, and GK section having 16 questions each, and the Analytical and Logical Reasoning section having 12 questions. So altogether, you have 60 minutes to appear for this 60 question or to solve this 60 questions, which is, I believe, good enough time. And majority of the students were in a position where they were left with certain minutes or some amount of time while they appeared for the paper. So they could do the entire paper in 50-55 minutes. It was not a very difficult paper. Because of certain aspects, I will categorize it more of a moderate difficulty level paper. If you look at each of these sections, the common elements, reading comprehension had a very small single passage followed by 3 questions. But these questions were mostly direct and factual, which could have been easily inferred from the passage. So it was not a problem for any student as far as reading comprehension within the general English section is concerned. 3 to 4 vocabulary-based questions were there where you had to identify the meaning of the words which are given out there. Then the focus was on grammar, usage of tenses, identifying the right tense over there, the usage of the adjective. Then there were some foreign words given in the paper in some of the slots for which you had to find the closest one out there in the meaning. Then there were a couple of questions which were about understanding the opposite in thought as far as the sentences were given. So if you look at this section, the focus was more on testing the grammar concepts and vocabulary. And overall, this section can be summarized to be a very easy section. Almost every student was very much comfortable as far as this section is concerned. And we can safely assume or safely say that 12 to 14 can be definitely considered a good score in this particular section. So overall, English section was very, very easy. Moving on, quantitative aptitude, which quite a number of students are apprehensive about, but this was more of a mixed bag. There was a surprise as well within this section. The focus, like previous years, remained on arithmetic. So whether you talk about percentage, whether you talk about profit loss, time and work, there were a couple of questions on time and work. Then we had questions on probability, permutation and combination. Again, a couple of questions out here. Then from geometry as well, where you had to find the areas of the areas out there, or the polygons were given out there. Surprisingly, we had a question on logs in some of the slots as well. Now, this is one area which is very unlikely for symbiosis entrance test, which is not expected, but this time it came as a surprise. There, in some of the slots, they did give questions on logs. Not a difficult one, very easy one. If you are familiar, little bit familiar, it was quite easy actually, but yes, this was an element of surprise, I would say. This section I would sum as moderately difficult, considering also the aspect that quite a good number of students are not very fond of this subject. But overall, this section was quite doable, not that difficult, I would say. And a score of 10 to 12 was definitely was easily manageable, and I would consider that as a very good score actually. So out of 16, 10 to 12 is definitely a good score as far as this section is concerned. Third section, which is analytical and logical reasoning. So it was definitely again a mixed bag. So quite a number of questions were there on the series. There were in each of these slots we had questions on circular arrangements, sitting arrangements, kind of. Every aspect or every topic was tried to be covered in the in this paper. So whether you talk about clocks and calendars, whether you talk about blood relations, cause and effect, arguments, probability, and surprisingly, even this section had questions in some of the slots from time and work, which means arithmetic or the quant-based questions actually. Set theory was also present out there. If you look at the overall difficulty level of the section, some of the questions needed some time to solve actually, so needed some attention, and that is why this section can be definitely rated somewhere between easy to moderate. Not a very difficult section, easily doable, but could be definitely classified as easy to moderate actually. So considering there were a total of 12 questions in this section, any score of 9 or 10 can be definitely considered good in this particular section. So that is something which is I would say when it comes to the analytical reasoning section, surprisingly it has lesser number of questions as compared to the other three, but still definitely a manageable section, and I'm sure all of you would have done a good job in this section. It was not very difficult, but yes, for some of the questions some time was required, some solving time was required, some attention was required, and that is why I can safely assume any score of 9 to 10 can be considered really good out here. Last section is general awareness, which was again on the expected lines. It was a good mix of static and current affairs, 30 to 40 questions depending on the slot, were basically from static GK. 60 to 70% questions were from current affairs. They tried to cover almost every area possible. So you had questions on history, you had questions on polity, different organizations, awards. For example, if you talk about the last slot today, there was a question related to Kailash Satyarthi, who won the Nobel Prize in 2014. So for which field he won the Nobel Prize. Then talking about sports. So important personalities, going on to even ask about the first Deputy Prime Minister of India, who was also known as Iron Man of India, actually. So if you look at the overall composition of this section, it was quite a good mix of static as well as current affairs. And 11 to 12 definitely can be considered a good score in this section. Static is somewhere majority of the students do have problem, it being so vast actually. But yes, some of the questions required a little bit depth of knowledge, I would say, actually. But still, this section was again very much doable. And if you are a little bit into GK, you would definitely have found this section to be quite comfortable for yourself. So 11 to 12 can be definitely considered to be a very good score in this section. So overall, if you look at the entire composition of the SET paper, which is for different institutions of symbiosis, you talk about BBA, you talk about economics and other courses, it's a common single entrance examination for each of these programs actually. So this paper was overall not that difficult or not that easy, while English, to just sum up, English was definitely one of the easiest sections. The other sections were doable, might have required a little bit of time depending on your preparation level, but definitely each of the questions were doable actually. So you could have easily attempted each of the question, and if your speed was good enough, I'm sure you would have saved some 5-10 minutes at the end as well. And obviously, post the paper, you had your VAT section where over the period of last 4 days, we had different topics. You had the option to write on any one of the given topics. So every time you had 2 topics present and you had to write on only one of the topics, which was given out there. Okay, so what is the expected cutoff, or what can be the cutoff which can get you to the next level? If I look at the overall aspect of the paper, the feedback of the students, we have been talking to the students in the last 4 days. So if I consider every aspect, I believe that for SCMS Pune, you would require somewhere around a score of 38 to 40 to move on to the next stage, which is personal interview. But do remember one fact, that this scores are merely the cutoffs, which means if you have anything above this, you are eligible for the personal interview, provided you have applied to those institutions. You would have you can definitely expect a call at this particular score. It might vary, but plus minus 1 or 2, I would say. So I expect the cutoffs to be in the range of 38 to 40 as far as SCMS, Symbiosis Center for Management Studies, Pune is concerned. Or for that matter, for Noida, it should be anywhere around 34, 36. And for SCMS Nagpur, which is Symbiosis Center for Management Studies at Nagpur, their third campus, it should be around 30, 32. Now, this is obviously considering the feedback of the students, considering the overall nature of the paper, may have a slight variation of 1 or 2 marks, but not beyond that actually. So what's now onward actually? So we have 2 big examinations coming next week. One is your IIM Indore IPMAT paper. The other one is your IIM Rohtak, the very next day of IIM Indore. So I'm sure you are all geared up now with 1 exam getting over, 2 exams in the pipeline. So I'm sure all of you are geared up now and you are going to give your best shot in those 2 examinations. So before we go ahead and look at your questions or and answer those queries, I would once again reiterate to the fact that if you have not applied to the institutions yet, which means if you have not paid for the respective colleges, please ensure to do that within the timelines. Else, even if you clear the cutoffs, even if you're scoring good marks in the paper, it will be very difficult for you to get a call because they won't consider your name. So here are the timelines on your screen right now. Please follow that and ensure that if you have not applied, do apply to that. Next would be definitely the interviews, which would be happening in the month of August. So only those students who appear for the interview, their WAC scores will be considered, and the final merit list will be prepared considering your scores in the SET examination, WAC, and personal interview. What will be asked in the interview? So interview, I'm just giving you a quick idea today, of course, but you can focus on that at a later stage. So interviews at Symbiosis are not very difficult, very generic actually. So they have, I would divide that into three parts. First is your generic questions, which is about telling yourself, which is about your strengths, weaknesses, your interests, your hobbies. Then the second part is about your academics, which is very, very important. So depending on your stream, which you have studied in class 11th and 12th, obviously they are going to test your knowledge. For example, if you're coming from a commerce background, then you are expected to know about economics, the concepts of economics, business studies, and from that you will have certain questions coming up. And the third element is of knowledge about your surroundings, which means the major important events happening around you in the country on the global scale. So it's a kind of, I would say, 10 to 12 minutes of interaction. Very easy. You don't need to take too much of pressure, but yes, there are certain kind of questions which you need to be familiar with and that you should be definitely preparing for. But right now, my suggestion would be to put all your focus on the IPM papers. Next Friday and Saturday, they are going to happen. And then all your gears can move back towards the Symbiosis interview preparation. So right now, your entire attention should go to IIM Indore. Okay, yes, paper has been done today, no more slots. So the entire SET process now gets over. The first stage of the process gets over. And next year, and next is personal interview only for the shortlisted candidate. So with that, we end the session today, and we'll catch up for the analysis of the IIM Indore paper next Friday. So do check out the CL website, careerlauncher.com, for the exact time for the analysis session. And we'll catch up once again where I come and talk about the expected cutoffs for the IIM Indore and IIM Rohtak paper after the paper gets over. So which points will be considered while evaluating WAT? The most important aspect is expression. That is very, very important. Your start, your body of the passage, your closure, they are very, very important. Whether you have written something which can definitely have an impact, that is very, very important actually. So how it's the content which matters actually. So definitely depending on the topic, is it relevant to the topic and is it the relevant content which you have written out there? That's very, very important. Okay, so 50% weightage goes to your SET performance, close to 20% weightage goes to your WAT, and 30% goes to your personal interview. So almost each of these stages are very, very important from the selection perspective. Okay, so wonderful. So that would be the SET cutoff aspects which we were talking about. And with that, I would end the session over here. See you soon with the IPM analysis and the IPM Indore paper analysis next Friday and Saturday. Thank you so much.